You're listening to the Results Driven Organizations podcast with Dr. Tanya Lowe, a podcast of curated conversations with C-suite leaders and those who support organizational growth and development. Get ready for inspiring interviews, educational lessons, and thought-provoking discussions that will challenge you to execute something new and innovative that will drive results in your organization. And now, here's Dr. Tanya Lowe.
Hello. You're listening to the Results Driven Organizations podcast with Dr. Tanya Lowe, using my results driven philosophy of strategy, leadership, teams, and customer experiences. I help organizations develop their best kept secret, their human capital. This podcast is designed to expand the conversation with C-suite leaders and those who support organizational growth and development, and what it really takes to create, develop, and maintain results-driven and high-performing organizations. Our guest today is James Gilman, president of Perimeter Office Products, towering in stature, soaring in service. At 6'8", James Gilman stands out in a crowd, but it's his passion for others' success that truly defines him. A proud Gwinnett County native and Brookwood High School alumnus, James's journey through Georgia Perimeter College and the University of Georgia shaped his dedication to learning, teaching, and community service. Since 2009, James has been a driving force at Perimeter Office Products, now part of the Office Depot Federation. I didn't know that. His role as a business matchmaker has not only fostered professional growth, but also personal fulfillment, as evidenced by the lives he's touched along the way. I'm sure there's some stories there. James' commitment extends beyond the boardroom. He's deeply involved in his community, volunteering with various nonprofits and supporting local sports, karate, and Cub Scout programs. This seamless integration of business and community service fuels his daily drive. With roots deeply planted in Atlanta, Georgia, and a vision reaching far beyond, James Gilman embodies the spirit of servant leadership, always striving to elevate those around him. James, welcome to RDO.
Thank you, Dr. Tanya. It's great to be with you today. I really appreciate the invite.
I'm so excited to talk to you. I'm glad that you're here. So let's jump in.
I'm ready.
James, we had a conversation about a week or so ago, and just really should have had the recording going then. And
Yes.
we just kind of talked about, leadership and what it takes to lead today. And there's so many things changing. Today, I want us to talk about what it takes to be an edgy leader, transitioning from edgy,
I like it.
Transitioning from so much of a traditional role to, what it takes to be innovative and creative in today's market. So my first question is, in an era of rapid change and disruption, leadership has undergone a significant transformation. How has the concept of leadership evolved in the past decade, and what new qualities are essential for today's leaders? So I know that's a mouthful, but just kind of think about it from your perspective.
So let's think about it. It's August 16th, 2024. So if we go back 10 years, that's 2014, right?
Yeah.
And 2014, in the business world, there was still a lot of leaders and decision makers that hadn't fully adopted and embraced technology. And I was in Atlanta. I was right in the middle of my sales career. And when you think about what businesses were doing to connect and to move product, sell product, and then when you look at what is happening today, it's completely night and day, and a lot of things have flipped kind of on its head. From the sales perspective, right? consumers want to be talked to a little bit differently. The attention span of not only people in business, but consumers has gotten so small.
Yeah.
So being able to line things up and as a business be in front of your consumer the way that they want to be confronted is definitely more challenging in today's world and climate than what it was 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. As you were talking, I was thinking about, wow, that was 2024.
Mm-hmm.
And even today, and that was 2014, even
Right.
today, 2024, we still have tech challenges.
Oh,
There's some, you would think, okay, people are more tech savvy now. They're using all of these tools. They're looking at the metrics of how to really engage their customer or their employees, but that's not happening. Why don't you think it's happening?
So why don't I think my brain was going in a couple different directions.
Why aren't we using, technology is not a new animal. We've been talking about technology for a while now. And so why is there still that deficit? Why do you think there's still that deficit?
So what I was thinking originally is how many different things did we have to log into in 2014? Right? Just email. So the main modes of communication 10 years ago was email and cell phone, right? Call me, voicemail. But now we are more technologically advanced, right? And we've got more ways to communicate with people. I mean, you can send somebody an Instagram message, all right?
WhatsApp.
A WhatsApp, right? WeChat, Hangouts. I mean, we could spend the whole rest of the podcast talking about the different ways, Zoom, that people connect. And that has, that's really fragmented the way, and people are just exhausted, fatigued. Right. So because because there of the number of ways to communicate, it's like we're on a lot more now.
Yes.
So much more accessible, and there's fatigue and there's burnout with that. So I think to some degree, integration with a lot of this stuff, like how are we going to communicate as an organization or as a team? Like what are the main modes? Well, I put it up on our Paylocity portal. You didn't see it there. Well, it's because it's in Teams underneath this file on this section, right? And it's definitely become more of a challenge as we've progressed and with technology. And now enter in, two-factor authentication, and you've got to prove that you're who you're at, and then you're sweating bullets because you got to pick the picture with the bridges and the right.
Don't even talk about it.
So I think technology is awesome, but the gap and the reason that to answer your question is just because it's gotten more complicated.
Yeah. I love that answer. And I think that, I never really thought about it. It takes a lot to utilize technology before I think you just triggered me with pick the bridges.
Right. Yeah.
One's
exactly.
a bicycle.
Yeah. The crosswalks. You're like,
oh my God, the two-factor notification. You're in a different location now.
Right.
It's a lot. It's a lot. And it really affects how we communicate as a leader with our teams, with our customers. It does create fatigue. And, I think about as more employees are wanting hybrid and remote workplaces, employers are going to have to think about that even more, even though they're tired of thinking about it, even though it's draining on them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess the good thing is there's never going to be a shortage of challenges and problems, right? So there's always, that's always an opportunity, right? To adapt and to overcome, which, I mean, that's what edgy leaders do.
Absolutely.
Right? You can't bury your head in the sand. You can't wish the problems away. You've got to develop the team and the people to be able to work together and to communicate together to figure out okay, this is the problem. How do we solve the problem?
How do we solve the problem? And how creative can we be with solving the problem, which leads me to my next question.
Yeah.
There was a 2021 McKinsey study that was done with 94, well, actually it said 94% of executives believe that creativity and innovation are critical to business growth. So in your line of business, what role does creativity play in effective leadership? And how can leaders foster creativity? How creative should I be as a leader?
My favorite statement is, you know what we could do, right? So I personally, I mean, it's a superpower of mine. It comes very naturally to me.
Yes.
And it can be and if there's a leader who can relate with that, I'm an idea guy. I love ideas. I get excited about ideas. So one caution to other leaders who can relate with that is be careful at how frequently you're sharing ideas with your team, and that you're not burning your team. You're not burning your ops people out with the new ideas, because you need those ops people. So I'm kind of reversing your question here a little bit. And it is, there's a right time and a right place and a right method to go about testing ideas. So just some different thoughts for the listeners is, maybe set up a time or a place to write all your ideas. You write all your ideas down throughout the week, and then set up a time and a place to talk to your team about, hey, what about this and what about this? And you're not the one selling them on the idea. You want their honest feedback. So making sure that you're creating an environment and a culture where people feel safe to speak and not fear retribution or, being ostracized or anything like that. If you want honest feedback and really want to move the needle with your organization.
Yeah.
So you mentioned creativity. I think that you need you need to be genuinely curious. Curiosity is I think the gasoline for creativity.
Yeah.
So
it opens the door,
curious, open-minded.
It definitely opens the door. If I'm always curious, that curiosity of a 2-year-old, right?
Oh yeah.
I want to know more. Tell me more. Why does this happen like this?
I love it. Yeah, and if you don't have kids, watching kids and the way that their brain works. I've got 3 of them. So an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 4-year-old, boy, girl. And my wife and I we have a Google Keep note that we share, and we write down all their ideas or write down their questions or like their funny statements.
Yeah.
And it's really fun to go back and look on that and to kind of see the evolution of, like, that's actually a really good question. Like, holy cow, where'd that come from? So,
you said something about, creating a culture where it's safe for people to share ideas and, brainstorm, brain dump, everything goes on the board. Let's talk it through.
Yeah.
That's a skill set to be able to create that environment where, well, I have an idea. It's not all the way flushed out, but that's the power of the team, right? That's the power of let's put it out there. You know what we could do, and then someone else adds something, and then that's how innovation is born, with curiosity and creativity.
Yeah, I'm getting chill bumps, literally. Like, I'm getting so excited about like that process of creating not just you by yourself, but it's so special when you throw something out there, your team feels it, the idea, and then they add something new to it and they add something else to it. And I mean, that whole ideation process to me is just that's what makes business fun.
Yeah.
for me. And then when everybody rallies around the idea and then you execute on it,
Mhm.
and then you get to celebrate. That's my favorite thing to do, right?
Yes.
Is hey, let's go do something fun or
Yeah.
whatever. So I love having fun. But so I'll tell you a quick story. So
Yes.
in sales here in Atlanta, when I was building up a book of business, office supplies, any door, any front door, any back door was a potential client. So I literally went into my territory was the 400 corridor.
Okay.
So from Sandy Springs all the way up north into Forsyth, about 10 miles east and west of 400, I literally went in every single building and every single office in every building. So thousands of companies, right? And I started paying attention to how the office felt.
Hmm.
And so because of that unique perspective of walking into an office and it's really quiet and people didn't want to talk and it's kind of stuffy and it didn't matter if what the type of business was. And I think that, there's certain, you need to be appropriate if it's a law firm, got a bunch of clients coming in, but there's still some law firm companies that I went in and people were excited and happy and talking, and there was a different buzz. There was a different feeling in those offices. And when I really started paying attention to that, I started paying it. I mean, that is culture, right? It's the feeling that you get when you're around your team and your people. And that's because of people being willing to lean in, people being willing to help each other, people not saying that's not my job. Like we talked about that before we went live, right?
We both said that's like running your nails on the
Nails on a
chalkboard.
chalkboard. You got it, Tanya. It
Oh,
is nobody. Everybody knows at Perimeter that you don't say that.
yeah.
Nobody. I better never hear anybody say that.
Yeah.
But in those offices, in that those decade plus of experience going in all those different offices, you could immediately tell, you could immediately pick up on it, how this business is going in the trajectory because of that feeling, that culture, that what's being created around it. So
Whenever I am in an environment like that, or I'll read an article about, oh, this company was named one of the best places to work,
sure.
I immediately want to find out more about the leader. And what was it? What were the what was it that said, I want this to be a place where people enjoy coming? Like they come, they enjoy it, they don't feel burnt out. Like what
Right.
makes a great place to work a great place to work? And that might be a series. That
Totally.
might be a series brewing,
There
but
you go.
I'm always interested in that. And when you go in, it is a culture. It is a culture where people are excited to be there, to team together, to
Yeah.
create together, and to celebrate together. It's something pretty special.
Yeah. So edgy leaders. I mean, when I look back at my career with Perimeter was founded by a gentleman by the name of Mike Everett, a dear friend of mine and mentor still to this day. When I interviewed with Perimeter, I also interviewed with another local office supply company that a friend of mine had worked for. And I did both interviews the same week at both companies, right? So I loved the idea of being able to build up my own book of business and then nurture that relationship in perpetuity as long as that client was still enjoying our services, right? So that part of that continual service, you build a relationship and you get to keep it. My previous career opportunities, that piece was missing. It was a one and done and move on, and I realized early on I didn't like that. But looking back on those interactions, it was the leader that I wanted to follow. The one company that doesn't need to be named was 10 times the size of Perimeter at the time.
Yeah.
Way bigger market presence, way better marketing, and known. Perimeter wasn't. but it was that feeling that I got when I was inside the office, right? It was like a boiler room and grinder, and the guy doing the interviewing, he was just prickly, you know?
Yep.
Mike, when I interviewed with him, he was at a different level. He was on a different gear, you know? And I liked that because I could tell that he had a vision, right? And we were going somewhere. And as a, you know, and that's going to detract some people, which is probably good, right? Because you don't want those people necessarily on your team if you're really passionate and you want to move forward.
Yeah.
I love winning and I love being part of a team. So that's what really attracted me. And Mike was an edgy leader. He did a great job communicating and sharing the vision. And that's why I think we're as successful today and why we won't ever lose sight of that.
So in that same vein, James, you know, edgy leaders must have. So you already said a vision.
Yep.
You got to be great communicators. What else would you add to that list?
Humble. You're not the secret sauce. You're not the guy.
Yeah.
Right? Or lady, right? It's not just you. Now ultimately, I mean, if you are that CEO or that leader, you do have to make the decision, the ultimate decision, right? Or if you're, you know, solopreneur or, you know, a small team or a startup, but you need to do it with the collaboration. And if you're a solopreneur, then you need to do it with the collaboration of your clients, right? I mean, you're working for your clients and serving your clients. So then being open-minded and humble, it's not, where's your identity as an individual? Is it in your position, your title, your idea, your product? It's like, I want my identity to be in the service and the connection. So I'm not going to die on a hill because, you know, we have to have this shade of color on the website on this banner, right? We talked about perspective too. So, so I think humility is huge.
Yeah.
And communicating. We talked about Maxwell. There's a great book. Many people communicate, but few connect.
Yes.
And it's such an awesome book. We think people are hearing what we're saying the way that we're wanting to say it. And it's absolutely not the truth.
Missing the mark.
Yeah. So I've got a gajillion examples of that. I'll spare you all those, but
so, you know, edgy leaders must have, we've talked about vision, we've talked about communication, humility, collaboration. In the 2022 World Economic Forum report, they listed emotional intelligence as one of the top 10 skills needed for the future workplace, including leaders. How important is emotional intelligence in leadership? And how does it, you know, we've talked a lot about creativity and innovation. You know, how important is it? And does it even contribute to being an edgy leader?
No, it totally does. How are we going to define emotional intelligence? It's how you're managing your own emotions and then understanding other people around you, right? Well, if you're already coming to the table thinking you're the best and you know everything and I'm here to prove everybody and blah blah blah, man, you've already lost. But that humility coming in saying, man, how can I learn? What can I develop? What can I, you know, how do we need to change this and do this better? And how can we tweak it?
Right.
I think that is emotional intelligence, or I mean, a large part of it, right? I mean, I think that is how you attract other people. I think that is how you help get buy-in on vision. It's because you're allowing the space for other people to add their input.
But it takes a level of awareness, right?
Totally.
Because there's so many leaders that they don't see their their people. They don't see their human capital.
Mhm.
They come in and they don't hear them, they don't see them. And so that's when apathy sets in. And, I'm just here for my check.
Sure.
And, so it does take emotional intelligence to be aware of where you are, but also be able to understand what your team is experiencing, how they're feeling, how they're going to perceive certain things, and make
Yep.
those adjustments.
If anybody's struggling with that, a good first step, you're probably not communicating on a consistent cadence with your leaders or your
Yeah.
teammates, right?
Yeah.
When was the last time you sat down with your, ops or customer care or logistics or, that key person who's supposed to be in charge of whatever that role or area, IT development, and asked them how they're doing? How's the week going? How's the family?
Yeah.
How's the job? How are you feeling around, your workload? Do you have the resources that you need? Do you understand what our goal and our vision is? What does a win look like at the end of the week? Do you know, what do you need to get done? Do you need any help doing it? And what does a win look like for you? How are you going to feel accomplished? If you haven't defined those metrics,
Mm-hmm.
then how can you help lead that person to do a good job if they don't even know what their rubric is?
Overwhelmed by emails, scheduling, and admin tasks? Eva's virtual assistants can help you get more time in your day. They manage calendars, handle customer service, and tackle projects 24/7. Reclaim your time and focus on what matters. Visit the show notes page to connect with Eva virtual assistants. Let's do more. Now back to the show.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
As you were talking, I was like, were you in my meeting on Tuesday? It's just with some clients on Tuesday. And that's, what does a win look like to you?
yeah.
Because everything is gray. Everyone is in this apathetic place. It's like, hey, you forgot how to win. So what does winning look like? So let's start from there. So if we're starting from zero, that's a great place to start, from the bottom. Let's start, because we can only go up.
Right. And that's perspective too. I mean, I think if somebody's realizing that and then realizing, wow, that's a big miss. How did I not do that? And then automatically you're like, well, that's such a big lift, or I should, you feel bad about not doing it before. And so, yeah, just take a small step.
Yeah.
A tiny step. And if
And
you're gonna feel uncomfortable, it's gonna feel weird. It's gonna feel awkward.
Yeah.
Okay, just go ahead and get that out of the way. Edgy leaders don't care about that. Right?
No.
Right? Get uncomfortable, right?
Get
That's what you're supposed to be.
Yeah. If you're so comfortable, then you need to ask yourself, where do I need to get uncomfortable so that I can grow? And if I can grow through my discomfort, then I'm helping someone on my team grow through their discomfort.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a huge problem in our society. I'm gonna zoom way out here and just kind of hit a thought. But everybody is working to alleviate pain or alleviate discomfort or alleviate, right? I mean, you think 50 years ago or 60 years ago, right? I mean, there was, or maybe 100 years ago, no hot water, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Right. And now we have all of these devices and accoutrements and right, things to make our life comfortable.
Easy,
right? Where's the easy button? I want that. And we need struggle. We need challenge.
Yeah.
So
So we need struggle. We need challenge. We need failure.
Totally.
Thomas Edison said, I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't
Amen.
work.
Absolutely.
What role does failure play in leadership, and how can leaders create a culture that embraces failure?
I heard a TED talk one time that this lady, I can't remember what her name was. She interviewed 1,000 leaders, and really the main difference that she boiled it down to was the time to make a decision. The amount of time that was spent on, do we do this? Do we not do this? They just made a decision, and then they went with it, because when you start doing something, you're going to get feedback. That's what you need. You need feedback. So if you're sitting in a conference room, you're not engaging with your clients, you're not engaging, on the floor with your team, like moving the pieces and the parts and oiling the spools. You need to do something so you can get feedback. Oh, that didn't work. Okay, how do we tweak it? How do we fix it?
What did you learn from it?
Totally.
What did you learn from it? Yeah. Yeah.
So when I don't think you'll ever, I'm so guilty of this, right? I'll just be honest, of operating in a fear mindset, in a lack mindset. That's anxiety, right? That's anxious, right?
Yeah.
Your body tenses up and it's not a good feeling. And when you're operating in the right mindset, maybe more of an abundance mindset, like, what could happen? What could this be? Yeah, I know it could go wrong, but yeah, what if it doesn't? What if it does work?
Yeah.
Right? Or what if we do learn? We will learn, but paying attention to the feedback that you're getting and not taking it personally and not taking it seriously.
I love doing 360 feedback assessments with leaders, so that they can get some honest feedback, and we look at the themes of where they have an opportunity to grow. Oftentimes where they think they're challenged is not really where they're challenged.
Sure.
It's a small piece. And when we get those feedback surveys, and we sit down and we look at, these are some things that keep repeating, how, as a leader, what are your thoughts, and what can we do to close the gap? Because this is where it's affecting you in the organization. No one likes to fail, but failure is research.
Totally.
It's total research. So
and again, and what you're doing with that statement, Tanya, is changing the perspective, right?
Yes.
Why do we feel the way that we do about the things that we're talking about? I mean, that right, metacognition. Are you thinking about what you're thinking about? How often do we think about our perspective on a situation?
Mm-hmm.
And when you're intentional about challenging and stretching yourself, right, even for fun, just see if you can come up with a different way or a different perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you're practicing that, I think over time it'll become a little bit easier. But it goes back to that humility thing, right?
But it also goes back to creating a culture. It goes back to creating that culture where it's okay to spend time in reflection. It's okay to mess up, and how are we going to fix it? It's okay to come together as a team and think of and ask the question, what we could do? And just create that. I think it takes time, but it's reminding people, this is I want to hear from you. I don't have all the answers. I want to hear from you.
Yeah. A lot of great ideas that that we've implemented have come from a driver, or like here's one example. Hey, why don't we keep like little toolboxes on the back of our trucks, right? Like, brilliant idea. An extra tape gun, a knife, straps, and some other things. That way, I wouldn't have ever thought of that. And that comes up, but because you have an open line of communication and people get excited about sharing ideas, there's so much of what the company is today. It's not the logo, it's not the name, it's not the website, it's the people.
Not the colors.
No, it's not. It's the people, and it's how we're communicating together and taking care of our clients together.
Yeah.
Right?
I always say if folks are happy on the inside, they're going to provide a better experience for the external customer. The internal customers are happy. They're going to provide an amazing experience for the external customer.
100%.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's why knowing your team and knowing what values they have is so important. Like their own personal goals and why are they here? Look, any of us can go get a job anywhere. Any of us can go do anything. There's no shortage of ways to make money in this country, right? But to really be a part of a team that's doing something that aligns with your values and your vision, that's something really special, and that's something to really strive for and to work for, look for.
Yeah.
Or to recognize when you actually get there. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we've got something coming up next week. And so for those of you who are listening, if you hear about this and you're like, oh my God, I missed it, you can catch it on YouTube. But we've got a session with talking about how to lead multi-generational teams. For the first time in history, there could be up to 5 generations in the workplace. In some workplaces, it's easy breezy. In some workplaces, they are very challenged.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to the edgy leader that has 4 to 5 different generations in the workplace, and they are used to leading from the mindset of their generation? What would you say to that leader?
Good luck. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm kidding. I mean, that's us. That's our company. 67 employees, and we range from 24 to 72.
Okay. Yeah.
So it is a challenge. I think that's where clarity and communication comes from.
Yeah.
We talked about earlier the number of ways that we can actually communicate with people, right? Slack, email, right? Teams. So
picking up the phone. I know that's old school, but picking.
Yeah.
Phone.
Yes, exactly. And so being willing to be flexible as a leader. I mean, I know that there's certain things that you just gotta be, hard line about.
Mm-hmm.
But I would really pay attention to how many hardline things you're gonna have, and try and be just as flexible with certain things as you are rigid, right? I think it was, I can't remember what I was looking at, but the age group also, I think I was actually looking at consumers, right? In the consumer workplace, your target market, what your business is targeting, it's the same thing. You could be, your purchaser could be in the 20s, and your purchaser could be in the 60s. So how do you communicate, and how do you get your brand in front of that decision maker to have an opportunity to be able to close a deal or whatever? So the way that they communicate, you need to be flexible to that, their desired method of communication. Yeah. So as important as it is for businesses to succeed, externally, you have to be able to be just as willing to do that internally as well. Yeah.
Flexibility, communication, and then I'll even add, as a leader, you have to understand that everyone adds value. Everyone adds value. That value may look different than what you're used to,
Mm-hmm.
But everyone has some value to bring. That's why you hired them. That's why you brought them into the company. And so I think it's the leader's job, the leader, the manager, to tap into um, nurturing the
Mm-hmm.
value that that person brings into the company.
Yeah, write down every person's name on a sheet of
Mhm.
paper in your organization and write a statement, a specific statement um, about what they did this week or this month or this year. And then actually voice that to them, either in person or in an email or a friend of mine, Kevin Monroe. Let me see if I've got some. He's got gratitude cards. He actually has cards
Yes.
that says "I'm grateful for you," and it's empty on the back.
Mhm.
Awesome guy. I would check him out on LinkedIn just get familiar. Put some good stuff in your own head too. But being able to voice, acknowledge your team members, acknowledge what they did good, affirm their action. Even if, I mean, and all of us could probably name a bunch of other things that they're not doing that great, and that's a different conversation for a different time. But you have to build up those deposits in your team to be able to have the ability to course correct,
Yes.
right? So you can't just go in and start bashing people on the head and telling them you did this wrong and what's wrong with you. And I already sent you the email, you didn't read it, and what's going on, right?
Yeah.
So, you know,
Because that
being
adds
human,
up.
being real.
Yeah, for real, for sure. So we've talked about a lot
Yeah.
today. If if
This has
there's
been awesome. This has been super fun, by the way.
a leader that's listening and they can only take away one thing, what would you want them to take away from today's conversation?
Yeah, a great takeaway. I'm looking back. The only constant is change. The only constant is change. Um, you know, People kind of make light of the well, back in my day mindset, and and my great aunt Dot, she was 98, um, and she was so influential for me, and all the way up to the right at the very end of her life, she was still learning. Hey James, show me this an Apple phone. She's working stuff. She's
Yes.
still learning, right? And she was born in the I think it was 19 the time was 1908. My grandmother was 1912. So think about the amount of things that had changed in their life. But you have to have the right mindset to being flexible and continually being willing to adapt and invest in yourself, pour in yourself,
Mhm.
learn yourself, right? What are the things you're learning? What are the things you're reading, right? Get better. You've got to change. So
Not
that's
everyone
what I would
around
say.
me has
Get
to change
edgy.
to adapt
Get
to
edgy,
me.
leaders, right?
So, James, this has been great. What are you reading that we should be reading?
Well, I don't know if this would be a book for all the listeners, but what I'm actually reading right now, rereading, is a book by Vern Harnish called Scaling Up. And it just talks about and lays out, the different things you should be focusing on throughout your organization and the complexities as an organization gets bigger. You add more people, right? A 5-person organization, if you're going to be adding a couple of positions, you've just, amplified the number of different ways people can communicate. And you need to be aware of that because that can cause breakdowns and issues.
Mhm.
So scaling up is a great one. It's extremely dense. It's a great read, but it's very technical. My favorite book and is one by Les Giblin. It's called The Art of Dealing with People. And every
Mm.
new hire, especially sales, I give them this book And it is only 34 pages or 39 pages. It's the shortest read. It's got 11 chapters. Each chapter is like a page and a half, but it goes through communicating. And talks about the ego, and it's a great crash course on for anybody to read. But
Awesome.
and can I drop one more?
Absolutely.
All right, my buddy Lewis Gump just released a book earlier this year, and it's called The Inside Innovator. He was actually a guest on my podcast, Pushing the Envelope, earlier this year. It's a practical guide to intrapreneurship. And this book really highlighted for me the opportunity as an employee that we have to really make an impact inside of an organization. I think a lot of times people can just feel like they're a cog in the wheel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And but to really be able to shift your mindset to realize that no matter where you are in the organization, you are a leader. Number one, you do make an impact and you can change the trajectory of the business. So really taking belief in that sense of ownership in your role right now. You're not always going to be in the role you're in right now. Right now, today, you're planning for what you're going to be in the future. Mm-hmm. So his book does a great job at, kind of providing a roadmap. I
love those books. I love all three of them, and we're going to make sure we add those to the show notes. And I guess my final question for you is, tell us about Pushing the Envelope.
Yeah. So look, you talk about wanting to be edgy. I do not like really being on the spotlight. I'm a team guy. I like being, in the middle of the crowd and, being able to, being on the spotlight is just a different thing. So doing my own podcast was a huge stretch out of my comfort zone. Mm-hmm. What are people going to think? Am I going to say something stupid? All of the fears and all of the doubts, I admitted to operating in that mindset. And then I just had some really great people in my ear and in my corner. Like, dude, you got to do it. And it's been amazing. I've met so many amazing people. I've had so much fun. And it has completely changed the game for me and for our company. So pushing the envelope, obviously, is about doing that little bit extra. And so I have fun talking with business leaders and employees about the great stuff that they're doing in and around Atlanta. And, just trying to dilute all the negative stuff that we unfortunately get bombarded with on a daily basis, right? There's so much good stuff that's happening. Yeah. So just wanted to be another voice. Along with you, kind of sharing some positive things. So
awesome. And we'll make sure we include a link to that in the show notes. I hope you enjoyed this episode. We've been chatting with James Gilman, president of Perimeter Office Products. Visit the show notes to see how to connect with James. Be sure to listen to his podcast, Pushing the Envelope. While you're in the show notes, grab a copy of Results Driven Organizations, the 4 Keys to a High Performance Workplace, and our 2024 Leaders Reading List, our special gift to you for being a valuable listener. Until next time.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Results Driven Organizations podcast with Dr. Tanya Lowe. Be sure to review the show notes for the resources mentioned, and don't forget to grab your free gift available at freegiftfromtanya.com. Until next time.